So I was just down in South Street, right? And having been in Philly for since like 2002, so that's what 3 years now. Um, my memory of South Street was always like vibrant, jumping, anything that's happening in the city. You're gonna see that in South Street, right? Everybody that comes to the city from outside the city is gonna make an appearance on South Street, bro. South Street look like it's hanging on by a thread. I think the only places that are still open, you got a couple jewelry stores, you got like boutique streetwear brands that'll probably be gone in 6 months.
Hmm.
A handful of restaurants that likely will probably go on in a couple months too.
Hmm.
Um,
The influx of vape shops.
yes, but not even all of them, right? So like those are like starting to go as well.
Mm.
Um, and it's wild. Because some of these were like institutions, at least I thought.
Right.
And the crazy part is, so I remember like when Tower Records left South Street, I was like, damn, that's wild. Like Tower Records is like big.
That was.
Um, and now like DTLR, City Blue, gone.
Right.
Never mind, your CVS's and your Rite Aids. That's a whole different conversation. But I can't help but feel like what's going on from the politics standpoint is having an impact on that. I mean, there are jewelry stores that aren't even there anymore.
Right.
So for me, I think it's one of those things where as I'm walking down here, in my mind, I'm like, I got questions. I don't understand a lot of this stuff. So I can only imagine what a young person, a high school teenager, or a young adult, 18 to 24, they probably have questions about a lot of things and they don't understand a lot of stuff. And that's not to say that like I'm an expert in any way, shape, or form. But I do like to kind of ask those questions and figure that kind of stuff out. I'd be curious to know if, it's political um, or just politics in general has played a part in what's happening with South Street. But
And I think that's a good point. So I guess if you had to offer some thoughts, because you were a young person around here, so you remember what South Street felt like.
yeah. Now, granted, to be fair, I'm not from Philly. So
Okay.
I've been told that by people that live in Philly. So I can't claim Philly as my hometown, but I have been in Philly for like 20 plus years. Yeah.
Okay. Okay. Um, but given that you have kind of seen it change, seen it in its different forms and iterations, what do you think some of the young people, like if you're a young person now, like and you see this, what are you thinking? What are some questions that come to your mind?
Honestly, uh, from my experience, I think that teens don't even have the capacity to process a lot of this stuff. Too busy focused on day to day. I don't want to say survival because that paints in like a really dire picture, but more so like, how am I going to make sure that like I'm doing what I need to do today, tomorrow, by the weekend, by the end of next week? So I don't know that a lot of these things they're even able to like process and put together or even know the questions to ask because I think most young people are influenced by their parents or other people that are older than them. And then they end up regurgitating that information back out until they're old enough to like fully invest themselves to make a really informed personal opinion. And to be clear, to be fair, I don't think everybody even does that. So, yeah, I don't know that they have the capacity to really worry about that, particularly in Philly when, they're seeing their family members get shot at, friends get killed, and that's not all Philadelphia teens, but there is a population of young people that are trying to just get through. So whatever the fuck is happening on South Street, I don't care.
And and that may not even be specifically unique to South Street or even to Philadelphia. But what we do know about Philadelphia is that that is a part of Philadelphia's culture.
Mhm.
Yeah, and I guess kind of connecting to that, you mentioned the term survival and how that paints a dire picture. Interestingly enough, though, I don't know if we lighten it up by saying anything else because I think to your point, I think there's a lot of like terrible stuff that's happening in Philadelphia. So the reality is, the young people are in fact trying to survive. So, how much activity, South Street has or how many businesses seem to be booming or how many vacant spaces and buildings are there, they're probably like, well, I'm just going to go down South Street to get a slice of pizza, or I'm going to go to, get a tattoo, but I don't really think about anything else. And that's an interesting concept because survival is a part of the daily struggle. So much so that they lose sight of like awareness on their surroundings and the things around them. So, if what I'm worried about is making it home tonight, I don't think about what my fellow person, fellow Philadelphia resident, fellow teen, fellow young person, whomever, I don't think about what they're doing because I'm just trying to get from here back to there,
Right.
safely and easily and quickly. Yeah, that's interesting. So I guess because we could probably talk about that and go on some tangents.
No, yes, we can.
Let's take a minute to kind of open this up in a way that feels maybe more sensible and reasonable for people.
Okay.
So I know who you are. So I don't need to know who you are because I know enough about you that'd be a silly question for me to ask. For people that are hearing this for the first time, for people that may be tuning in and listening, who are you? Why are we here today? What are we talking about?
Oh,
So I guess introduce yourself and kind of
yeah.
like open this up and we'll pick it up from there.
Yeah, it's weird. Like I struggle talking about myself in this light, but it's something I do better job at. My name is Quan King, and I think the best way to introduce myself is that I'm a advocate for teens and a mentor. Those are things that I'm very passionate about. And coincidentally, I just happened to look up one day and realize I've been doing this kind of work for like 20 plus years, which is kind of crazy to think about, but it is absolutely 120% true. Whether these are college students who were colleagues and friends and peers of mine, or, older adults, individuals I had to interview to get jobs, to work on teams or in departments that I was in. I've run camps for ages like 4 to 12 years old. So I've literally like ran the gamut of experience and seeing how when you give somebody advice or when you give somebody information or when you are there to support somebody, what that end result can look like and what it continues to look like. So yeah, it's been a interesting ride to say the least. But I think now is an opportunity for me to really put it to some really good use and to be able to put information out there that's going to help serve this very important demographic of teens and young adults, which I feel oftentimes by society gets overlooked.
Okay. Thank you for that. That's a nice way to open up. You mentioned that you mentioned that you have been here in Philadelphia for 20 plus years and you're not super old. So I guess my first question is what brought you to Philadelphia? And if it matters, right? And if none of this matters, feel free to, but if there's any pertinence to it. So what brought you to Philadelphia and why after 20 plus years are you still here?
Gotcha. So originally I'm from Detroit, Michigan. And so I grew up in Detroit during a time where, you had, really, really devastating gang violence in general. Drive-bys were a regular kind of common occurrence, not too dissimilar to what we see in Philly on some days. Um, and I left there when I was about 11 and we moved to North Carolina, Raleigh to be specific. So needless to say, there was a big culture shock. And we moved to Raleigh right when Raleigh was starting to boom as a major kind of metropolitan, I can't even really say that, it's really suburban, but area and space, the triangle, if you will, down in Wake County. So it's been interesting to like have those dual perspectives throughout my development, understanding like, Detroit is a major urban center in the United States, at least it was, and watching that decay over time due to, politics and different policies and different administrations that have come in, has had an impact on me. But also living in North Carolina and seeing how the world and particularly how this country, how different it is. Even if you're just a few hours away, how quality of life is different, thought processes are different, heritage and customs are completely different. The language that you speak. I grew up, when I was in North Carolina, people knew I wasn't from North Carolina because they could hear it in my voice. They
Yeah.
were like, "You're not from here." And that was the first time I was like called a Yankee. And I didn't really know how to take that because in my mind, I'm like, New York Yankees, duh. But for people in the South, that's a whole different thing, right? So
Right.
it's that whole, Mason Dixon and the whole, Confederacy, like all that stuff. And so for someone to say, like, oh, you're a Yankee, it wasn't necessarily like a threat. It was just more so like a realization that like you're not one of us. And so, um, for me to come to Philly, I already had that experience. I had that understanding where I was already comfortable being kind of like a fish out of water. And so I had like a bit of a luxury to be able to just kind of sit and observe and see Philly for what Philly is without the preconceived notion of, well, this is Philly. And to be clear, like I came up to Philly for college. I went to Philadelphia University, which is now Jefferson, but we're not gonna talk about it. And that was the first time I had been to Philadelphia. I didn't visit the school prior to. I didn't know anything about Philadelphia other than the fact that it wasn't in the South. So
Mm.
that was my main goal was to get out of the South because personally I think the South is a black hole for a lot of people and especially black people. You get really comfortable. The seasons are like the same all year round, and
Right.
why would you want to leave? Because everything that you need is right there, except for like everything else the world has to offer. So yeah, I've been in Philly because Philly feels like a great mix between Detroit and Raleigh. But also Philly has a lot to offer, and I feel like I have a lot to offer Philly for the 20 plus years I've been here.
Okay. So I guess that's why you stayed. You see opportunity here in Philadelphia.
So another thing about Philly that I've come to really appreciate, especially as a transplant, is the fact that when I talk to people who are from Philly, a lot of people shit on Philly all the time. I mean, Philly's trash, it's just corny, da 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 da. And they're like, I can't wait to leave. And the fun thing is, like, those that do manage to leave, when they come back, they're like, you know what? Philly actually kind of tough. I don't know, I was kinda tripping, like, I just thought, it was, I thought it was, like, dirty, this kind of other stuff, but then I go other places and be like, "Shit's corny," and I'm like, "Yeah," because being in Philly, like, you're 2 hours away from, like, damn near everything. 2 hours from New York City, 2 hours from the mountains, 2 hours from the beach, 2 hours from Baltimore. Like, you're at like a perfect like sweet spot when it comes to things to do. So not only do you have all these things around you, but then it becomes a confluence of all the things that are like there to actually do. So, it's a major hub for, sports, for entertainment, for concerts, all sorts of other stuff. So, and then Philly turns up when it's time for Philly to turn up. So it's super dope, and you don't get that in every major city in this country. I liken it to I feel like Philly has a little sister, if you will, and I know people are not gonna like this, but in Atlanta, I feel like there's a lot of similarities in terms of what Atlanta has to offer and what it relation, geographically is to, a lot of other stuff. Now I can't speak to what's 2 hours away from Atlanta, but I do know you got Florida, you got beaches, you got, you know, New
Carolinas.
Orleans and the Carolinas. So it's like it's a
Yeah.
lot of different things that are happening down there. And there's a lot of people that are moving between Philly and ATL all the time. So you go to Atlanta, it's a lot of Philly cats down there. You here in Philly, you're gonna hear about a couple Atlanta dudes up here too. So yeah, it's nice. So I fucks with Philly, and it's hard to see myself going anywhere else unless I go back to Detroit and try to help be part of that rebuilding process. But with a family currently established, I don't know.
Okay. Something you said when you were introducing yourself and who you are is you said that you're an advocate and a mentor. You spoke to the fact that you have been working with camps and such. You've done a lot of specific, you have a particular set of skills. I don't know if it matters as much if you kind of share some of the specifics of what you've done, but I'm curious more so to know about the title of advocate and mentor. Now, those are usually roles that you'll hear about in a job description. Like, so your job description is whatever, and one of the things will say advocate to mentor to
Mm,
da da da.
yeah.
And you kind of opened as that's what I am, which seems like it's an umbrella term, and it happens to be where you find yourself kind of like professionally in the way you kind of navigate the world. Can you speak a little bit more to what that's like, or what that really is as an advocate, as a mentor to teens, and just kind of in that way?
Sure. So you probably know this, but a lot of people don't know this, but I have a very unique idea, concept of what mentoring is. And for those that may or may not know, I did a whole podcast looking at what is mentoring. Um, and you can find that wherever you find your podcast. So I'll start with the mentoring thing first. So for me, being a mentor is a very serious thing. I think oftentimes in society, we view mentorship as a rehabilitation, when in reality, mentoring is a necessary component for anyone trying to get from A to B. Mentors come in all different shapes and sizes, and they come from a lot of different and familiar spaces. So your parents are mentors, your siblings are mentors, family members are mentors, teachers, obviously, people in your community. All these different individuals play a key role in your development and getting you from A to B. Now, what we like to typically and generally identify as a mentor is somebody you meet with like once a week. Then you have these sit down conversations with them and they ask you
A
questions
lot
and
more
you,
structured, a lot more.
yeah,
This is a relationship
right.
that's going to be established, and this is what happens in it.
Yeah, and there's just this one-on-one dynamic that takes place. When in reality, there's a lot of different ways in which you can mentor, and people do mentor. You got group mentors, you got small group mentors, you have one individual for a bunch of young people. Then you also have your more traditional one-on-one. But I think that when you talk about what it means to be a mentor, and I did a lot of this in my podcast where I asked a wide swath of different people based off the experiences, what is mentoring? I found out that it's not being an advisor, it's not being a counselor, it's not being a coach, it's not being all these things that when you ask somebody what's a mentor, they give you this other word.
Right.
It's not those things. Mentorship and mentoring is really leveraging your own personal experiences to help someone else along on their journey. So it's different from coaching in the sense that like coaching is about developing a skill and getting better at
Right.
something. And you can like you can track that, you can see that.
Right.
Counseling is about if you have an issue, you have a problem, you can go to somebody who can give you advice on that particular thing. Similar to an advisor is I may have a situation that I need to find a resolution for and I need assistance in that.
Mhm.
Right. Mentoring is takes some of those things, but it also is a unique thing in and of itself. And what I will also say is that no one in life has been successful or gotten from A to B without a mentor. So this idea, this notion that like you've done something wrong and so now you need a mentor, I think is false, right? I think we have to really move away from that idea that mentorship is rehabilitation and it means that you've done something wrong or somehow you're less than.
Mm.
No, no, no. You simply are trying to figure out how can I get to where I'm trying to go, and oh, by the way, there are people who are already either on that journey or just ahead of me who can help and assist. And if it's opening a door, if it's, leveraging an experience to say, like, hey, you should be mindful of this. That's all mentorship is. And oftentimes it's those types of interactions, those experiences that separate and put people in better positions to be successful long term. So when you talk about it's not what you know, it's who you know.
Mm.
It's knowing that you have a mentor, knowing that you have somebody that's, 4 steps ahead of you that can say, hey, look out for this pitfall. Hey, watch
Right.
out for this. Hey, ask this kind of question. Hey, do this. I mean, that's mentoring. So I've been doing that for 20 plus years. And it hasn't always been like, hey, I'm gonna take you under my wing for like 2 years and I'm gonna show you the ropes and we're gonna do this. It's really just been about having really important conversations and getting to understand and know people and then figuring out how can I support you and help you if I give a damn, if I choose to. And more often than not, I give a damn and I choose to. So I do. So that's the mentoring piece. When it comes to advocacy, I've been in a couple different roles and positions now where I've been with organizations that want to do something very positive for young people, particularly for teens. And I've seen how, I don't want to say the politics, but the bureaucracy of how organizations and companies and corporations work gets in the way of them actually being able to deliver on that. And so I've often found myself in the room saying, well, wait a second, we need to make sure that we're doing right by the teens. This feels as though this is something separate, this is something
Mm,
different,
mhm.
and we're not getting enough of the young people who we say that we want to have a positive impact on involved in this process.
So it sounds like this speaks to the folks that are well-intentioned, but not necessarily focused on or committed to doing the thing. It's
Yeah,
like, "Oh, yeah, like, I wanna do this," but when it comes down to it, it's like,
I want to do it on my terms or for my reasons. And I give this example all the time. I say it's really great to go into the community and give kids coats. But if they're hungry, you're missing the mark. So, it's dope if you can make a connection to a whole bunch of coats, then you give it to the kids in the community. But if you're giving it to the kids during the summer and they've been hungry and they're in a food desert and you know that, then it kind of feels like you didn't really give a damn about what the kids needed.
you
You
just
just
wanted
had
to
some coats.
and you wanted to be able to say, "Look, I helped.
Right.
I gave them coats."
And unfortunately, there's a lot more people doing those kind of things for young people as opposed to people who genuinely sit down and talk with young people and say, how can I help? What can I do to help? And as a result, a lot of young people have gotten really savvy and they know how to either work the system to their advantage or just take advantage of it. I've seen groups of kids go from event to event because I can go over here and I can get a book bag and school supplies. Then I can go over here and get some sneakers. Then I can go over here and get some food. Then I can go over here and get a jersey. And I can do
Right,
all of that in a day.
right,
And
right.
so, all I gotta do is like sign up to this thing or do this thing or say I'm gonna do this thing and I'll get what I'm looking for, but I actually have no intention of actually following through. I'm just here to get the thing.
So, I guess with that, it sounds like it's not it's not important, and I think this might be what you're kind of, like, teasing out, but helping is one thing,
Mhm.
but helping can be whatever. Helping is almost nebulous,
Sure.
where, like, I have 100 coats that I'm donating to this organization, and they're gonna give the coats out, which is fine, but I guess kind of in the example you gave, where you think of there are these concurrent programs running where we have coats, we have jerseys, we have food, we have book bags.
Mm.
So it's almost like a buffet of sorts, but it's not really helpful
No.
because well, and let me backtrack because it's helpful in the fact that it provides a thing for someone that may need a thing,
Sure.
but it's not really helpful in the way of I guess what you're talking about with mentoring, kind of really attending to the people that need a thing because you're going to get a coat, you're going to get a book bag, you're going to get some lunch, but I never asked you what you needed.
Right. It's a photo op, right? It's going into the community and this is gonna sound harsh, but like you're looking down on these people that you want to help and saying, here's what you need. And that's not always the case. You know what I mean? It's liken it to like, you pass a homeless person on the street and you give them $5. Did you help? Maybe. But what could have been more helpful if you were able to get them housing, get them a job, help them with an addiction that they may have had. But you wouldn't know any of those things unless you asked them. So you had an actual conversation and you say, you know what? I'm actually committed to helping this person, how can I help? And I know that $5 can be helpful, but also know that I could probably do a little bit more if I just knew. And I think there's a massive disconnect when it comes to those that want to help and the people who need the help. And I'm hoping that with my, wealth of experience and with my capacity now, I can actually do that. Because I also feel like there's a really big underserved population, and that's that 18 to 24-year-old. Those are still in a lot of ways young people because you have individuals that either aren't going to college or even if they are in college, they still don't really know what they're doing. They're just doing what they're told, kind of going through the motions.
Doing what they've seen.
Right. And they're still trying to figure things out. And it's weird. So like we think of, growth and development in terms of like, infancy and youth, and then you go into your adolescence and your teens, and then somehow you go from like teen to adult. And that's not really the case. There's a growing like segment of this like post-teen young adult where there's a lot of stuff that's still carrying over from being a teenager that's bleeding into this 18 to 24-year-old where you're not really like you're an adult on paper, right? You can, you know, join the army or you can, you can
Drive, you
drive, you
can
can buy
vote,
cigarettes,
you
you can
can buy.
vote, you can't rent a car yet, which is, we're not going to talk about that.
Sure.
But you can do all these things, but like you still may not know much of anything of what it is, who you are, what you want to do, where you're going in life,
Yeah.
things that the assumption is made that by 18 you're supposed to know those things. And I'm seeing personally, my experience more and more, there are people in their 30s that have no idea.
It's almost like you're saying they age out of immaturity. They don't become mature. They just age out of immaturity.
Yeah.
So after X age, it's like, so you know this because you're 22 now, without actually learning a thing or being able to put one and one together to make sense of this adult concept.
It's like camp. It's like you can't go to camp anymore because now you're 13. It's
Right.
like,
But
but I don't have anywhere else to go. Well, you can't go
Right.
here. You're not a teen anymore. You're an adult now. And it's like, but well, I don't know what I thought I was supposed to know. Well, that's when you got to figure it out and get out of my house.
So I want to come back to the 18 to 24, that population. I do want to go back to what we were talking about before, just to kind of clear a thing up, because I feel like this could land interestingly. I don't get, I know you're not saying this. It almost sounds like helping is not significant enough. And, it's all about mentoring and not helping. And I don't want it to be misconstrued that giving the $5 to the homeless person is not helpful. It's a bad idea. I think what you're doing, and if I'm wrong, please clear that up.
Sure.
What you're saying is mentoring and advocacy are very specific in what they do and how they go about doing it. The $5 will definitely get that person that needs a sandwich.
Yep.
And that's here. That exists here where it does. Mentoring and advocacy is maybe more the conversation of like, hey, so I come to this store fairly regularly and I see you out here. What's going on? Like, you sure it looks like food would be helpful, but is there anything else that you need? Like what can be done to kind of change this? Because I don't know that you want to be out here doing this. Is there something that can be done to kind of help you get from here to wherever you'd like to be?
There's an intentionality behind advocacy and mentorship. I think you give somebody $5, you help them for the next hour. But if you actually want to help somebody long term, you can't be a mentor to somebody you don't know. You can't advocate for somebody if you don't know what they need. The common thing between those two things is you gotta know the person. And again, I've been in organizations where I've had the conversation and say, well, if we want to do this thing, if we want to help mothers, first-time mothers, we can't assume that we know what a first-time mother needs.
Right.
The conversation has to start with the first-time mother.
Yep.
And say, hey, you're a first-time mother. What will be helpful?
Right.
We are this organization. We bring all these resources to the table. What will be helpful to you? But instead, organizations say, well, we have these resources and we think this is what young mothers need. And do you miss the mark sometimes? Yeah. Because again, you may give coats and they may need food. So I'm hoping that I can leverage my experience to, at least if nothing else, provide organizations with that information to say, this is what young people are saying that they need. And you can do with that information what you will, but also it's an opportunity to give voice to teens and young adults who oftentimes don't even get to have the voice. Because oftentimes they're thought, well, you know what you're talking about. You're too young. You're too immature. You don't get it. You don't know how the world works. Again, there's some 30-year-olds that don't know how the world works.
Truth.
There's some 40-year-olds that don't know how the world works. There's people in the White House that don't know how the world works, but we're not going to talk about that.
So you are not anti-help. You are pro-mentoring and pro-advocacy.
Pro those things and intentionality. Be intentional.
Yep. Okay. Cool. That's helpful. And and I'm glad that was kind of articulated because, I can see people like, but I thought the $5 was a good idea. And it's not that it isn't, but what you're speaking about is something like, if we want to move the needle, this is how you move the needle.
And I would challenge to the person that wants to get $5. Why did you get $5? Did it make you feel good? Or do you think that it helped that person?
Yeah, that reflection, that introspection
Because
kind of
I
piece
think
of
it,
it.
it
Yep.
it made you feel good to get $5. You can care less if the person actually benefited from it, because you also know that they can go get alcohol with that $5. They can go get drugs with the $5.
And you walked away after you gave them $5.
You didn't follow up and say, "Hey, I just spent $5. Hey, did it help you?" You were just like, "I got discretionary. Here you go.
Yeah.
Please stop talking to me. I gave you $5."
Right.
So like that's again, it's not. Most people would not consider that help.
Right.
They would say
An
you saw a
opportunity.
nuisance maybe, and so you just wanted to
Yeah.
like dismiss it. Which again, like I could extrapolate that into the same thing when people come into, you know, at risk communities and do a thing. It's like, yeah, let's get together for this picture, and as soon as they snap, then they go get hand sanitizer and wipe
Yeah.
their hands.
Yep.
And you know what I
Yep.
mean? Like
Yeah.
that's
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
nah, like that's not.
Right. Okay. Cool. Thank you for that. All right. So this underserved population, the 18 to 24. Okay. So let's talk about them. I
Yeah,
guess just kind of like, so you talked about kind of like this whole dynamic that they have where they're just assumed to know things. Um, what does that look like for that population? What does that look like to them? So we are older, we see them. How do we identify an underserved 18 to 24-year-old? What does that look like? What do we see when we see that?
I don't even know. I think it's less about identifying it and really remembering what it was like when you were that age. When you started seeing the world differently and started piecing things together, and how difficult that transition might have been for you. And I'll put it into even greater context, right? Going to college being this really great microcosm of the world and this little incubator for how you can grow and learn and be ready for the real world. But also keep in mind, not everybody goes to college.
Yep.
So there are individuals who don't get that beautiful opportunity and experience, but they still are getting real life lessons and experience at the same time.
Right.
But what I will say is that this slice of individuals, 18 to 24, I worked with them for a number of years in a lot of different capacities, mostly as supervisor, boss, manager, whatever you want to call it. But I got to have real conversations with them about life and things that they were going through. I've had young people whose parents split after they got into college, and they were trying to process, wait a second, was my whole upbringing just a lie? My parents really didn't fuck with each other like that? I've dealt with young people who are experiencing homelessness during this time period. People who are having identity crises,
Crises.
struggling with their identity. I've had people struggling with their sexuality, trying to understand, who do I like? How do I like? What do I love? What is love? And I think that this moment in a young person's life where now all of a sudden you get all this new responsibility, where you can do these things on your own and you're trying to figure it out, is a very interesting and challenging time. And there's no significant level of support that we have in society for this age group. Like literally in the olden times, way back when, the idea was like, by the time you were 18, you could just go work somewhere, whether it's in a
Hmm.
factory or on the farm or
Hmm.
wherever, make a living, and then you figure it out as you go along.
Hmm.
You get married, you have kids, and now you're an adult, you got it. Now life is so much more complicated than that. And on top of that, you don't, there's still no like instructions, right?
Right.
We're just assumed that somehow when you turn 18, you're supposed to know about credit. You're supposed to know about
Mm.
what your benefits statement looks like if you were to get a job, and how, retirement works,
Right.
and how voting works, and how
Buying a home ownership and
mortgages, and,
mortgages. Yep.
and how to be a parent. Like none of these things are things that there is a source of information for. Now, yes, there are organizations that can help and resources that are out there, but it's not as though there's this uniform rite of passage program that all young people go through, so everyone's on the level playing field. And the unfortunate reality is you have a lot of young people, probably now more so now than in years past, that are coming from broken families, broken homes,
Yeah.
where they they see parenting and parenthood very differently than what a traditional kind of upbringing would have been when you have two parents in the house. Now you might have young people growing up with an understanding that, like, yeah, marriage doesn't work, period. And so now I'm going into the future with the understanding that, like, I don't plan on getting married because marriage doesn't work. And I saw that from my parents and my friends' parents and my uncle and my aunt, like, and they're seeing all these different things and they're like, well, yeah, that's not how things work. And the same thing with, like, well, my parents didn't save. So, like, you don't have to save to be successful. My parents are successful. Or, we didn't have a home. And so I don't plan on having a home because that just feels like it's too complicated. And, nobody in my household did that or went to college. And so college isn't necessary. I could just go work here. And it's like, yes,
Yeah.
those are options. But also, do you know that there are other options?
Yeah. So you're talking, so what it sounds like is you're talking about modeling and the lack thereof modeling, right? Like if I didn't see this thing happen, I don't know that it can happen. And then the opportunity for exposure where there's just kind of like you're saying that point of like, did you know that this thing was available? Did you know that you could do this? Because I think what you're speaking to this point that I've realized as well. I think a lot of people don't understand that things exist until they're told,
Yes. Yes.
right? Like and we'll talk about privilege, a little bit here because, some of us grew up in spaces where we had access. Some people had two-parent homes, some people had, that big house, some people they had the things that everyone doesn't have.
Mhm.
So for some people, it just came naturally because this is what you saw. And it's like, oh, well, yeah, I mean, I'm going to get married and I'm going to have a house and I'm going to save and I'm going to be up, I'm going to own a business and a company because, my family, my aunts and uncles and everybody has done this because you saw that. And then conversely, we'll have the people that didn't see that and thought that struggling was normal, was common. And as a result, they may not conceptualize making choices that might make things significantly easier.
A lot easier. Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
It's wild. So, like, I think about, like, we'll take it very visceral, if you will. So, like, the amount of sex education that I got while I was in college was impressive. And it's not to say like I got a whole bunch, but the fact that there was a space where I could go to get condoms.
Hmm.
There were actually a couple different locations I could go to get free condoms.
Right.
But also if I need to get tested, I can go there and get tested. If
Right.
there was something wrong, I could, go through this whole process of like figuring out how to resolve it. And this was all managed again on campus.
Okay.
Now, if I am 19 years old, I don't go to college, how do I know any of that stuff?
Right.
Right. I'm going
Right.
off of what someone else told me or what my parents told me, if I'm even able to have that conversation with my parents.
If that conversation even happened,
And
the
then
birds and the bees, what is
and if we don't do that, then we're looking at what's online and what's available. And if we can just parse that information, because again, we're living in an age of information and misinformation, and young people have grown up now always having the internet, not knowing how to always parse out what's real from what's fake.
checking? Yeah.
So they may go online and say, "Oh, I found this website that says this thing, and now this is the truth." And it's like, well, no, that's not. You didn't. So just to be clear, if you don't get pregnant from oral sex, right? Like, but if they see that on a website, they might be
That
like, oh, well,
becomes
that
right.
no, but it's right here. It says that
Right.
because it goes to your
I looked it
stomach,
up
and then
and
that's what happens.
yeah.
It's like, no, 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 no. Or my favorite influencer person said this thing, not knowing that the influencer person is trying to sell a product. Because again, that puts money in their pockets. And so now, yeah, remember the whole purple toothpaste thing? Right, exactly. Just bunch of nonsense and bullshit.
So, and I guess kind of, and I'm thinking about that. So where does a 19-year-old go to get that information? Like,
Great question.
I'm
Right.
really thinking about that now. And
Yep.
because again, to your point, some of us were privileged with college
Mhm.
and having the resources. And it's like, oh, I just went to the health center. That's where I went. I went to my residence hall. I went to I went to insert any of these places here. So the 19-year-old that maybe couldn't go to school because they couldn't afford it because of blah, blah, blah. I have this thing going on. What do I do next?
or if you're privileged enough, you have a PCP, which some people
Ugh,
not even know what that is. Right, your primary care physician.
For-
So if you have a doctor that you regularly been seeing, I mean, I know technically adults that still go to their pediatrician.
Yep. Yep.
And again, pediatrician is a doctor for children.
By specific terminology.
For children.
Yes.
So
yes.
it's very important to like really get people to understand that in order to be, an adult and successful and significant and be able to make an impact that you want to make in the world, there are some things, there's some information, there's a knowledge gap that I want to try to help fill in as best as I can. And again, I'm no expert, but what I can do is I can interpret questions that are being asked by a younger generation to say, is this what you're trying to say? Is this what you're asking?
Yep.
And then connect with resources that are out there to say, all right, these are questions and let's sit down, have a conversation so we can get to those answers and then put that on an entire podcast episode. And then everyone benefits from the information.
So, yep. Okay. So what does your service look like then, right? Like we just spent time talking about this example of information that folks may not be able to get. So what is this service? What are we talking about right now?
Yeah, so I'm creating this platform. I think that's the best way to really explain it. It's called Life's Hidden Curriculum with me, Quan King. Where basically I have a bunch of knowledge and things in my head from my experience that I've done, but I think that's a disservice to just act as though I'm the subject matter expert on a thing because I'm doing no better than any other organization I've worked for that says like, well, I know what you need.
Right.
So with my knowledge, I also want to go to young people and ask them, hey, tell me and tell other people that are listening, what is it you need? What's your lived experience as a teen here in Philadelphia? Tell me what are things that you don't know. Tell me what success looks like to you and how you plan on getting there. Tell me, what do you think about college? What do you think about AI? What do you think about the government? What do you think about all these different things? And let's see if we can figure out what are some areas that I could leverage my experience and my network and resources I have access to help you get answers to those questions. I may not be able to sit a teen in front of a financial expert to answer all questions about credit, but what I can do is say teens have questions about credit and they're not sure how finance works, how savings work, any of those things. So financial expert person, like, let's have a conversation about those things and let's break it down in an hour to get like some really quick hits and some quick facts and get that information out there and then put it on a platform where it can live forever. So a 14-year-old today might say, kind of makes sense a little bit, but then when they're 19 about to get their first credit card, they can listen back and say, oh shit, I get it now. That makes sense. And we can do that for a lot of different things, whether it's, health and wellness, whether it's about, identifying your passion, which I feel like is super huge, sexual health. I want to do an episode about drinking, right? About how do you responsibly socially drink, because that is actually possible. And I feel like there are a lot of young people who don't even understand that that's an option. They believe that when you go out and drink, you got to get blacked out drunk. Otherwise, you
didn't
didn't drink.
Yeah, you didn't do it right.
It's like, no. You can actually enjoy, having a drink and not passing out and being able to remember what happened the next day.
So feeling like absolute garbage
right
the next day or later that evening.
Because you may find yourself in a situation where you're at a job or you're at a company and they say, hey, let's go out for drinks. And if you have no frame of reference as to like how to do that,
I'm supposed to have 12.
You're like,
with my boss,
we're doing shots, and it's like, you may not understand that. Like,
so it's a glass of wine.
Certain things that you say may be like, yo, like you, right? And so those are things that I think, again, if you've never been in those situations before, you've never had that experience, you don't really know those things. And so I want to help leverage that for young people.
Providing access, you're kind of liaising to, if you have someone in your network, a person, and maybe you'll have a conversation, or maybe you'll bring that person to a group of people, or however, or just connecting folks to resources that may exist around certain topics.
Yep.
So do you have this list of topics? Does this list exist? Is it a growing list? Is it organic? Is it, I have these 12 things I'm going to talk about? Or is it, if tomorrow I realize here are 4 of the topics that I could add to my growing network of conversations, what does it look like for you?
So I have an idea, obviously, right?
Okay.
But again, this isn't about me. So what I want to do is I want to sit down with a group of about 6 high school students and also 6 young adults and have some conversations with them and ask them those questions. What are those things that you all need? And those will be my topics that I'll go with. And then I will match those topics with the resources or with the experts or with the other individuals to then sit down and have conversations about those specific topics. So what the end product ends up being is teens have questions, teens get answers.
Yep.
Boom.
Okay.
And
Simple.
if nothing else,
Direct.
we just figure out like what that looks like and make that as beautiful and as professional and as high quality as possible and engaging so that it actually benefits young people. And so they don't look at it and say like, here's somebody else saying that they want to help. And then what, I get nothing from it. And then on top of that, I want to layer on, some other contextual kind of stuff on the platform too. So there's news articles, there are events, there are things that are happening in the world around us that I think would be beneficial if young people kind of understood it a little bit more. And so I want to do some in case you missed it segments
Mm.
where I kind of break down some of that information, at least from my perspective, to at least make sure young people are more informed about some of the things that are going on without me trying to lecture them and tell them how to live their lives. I want to sit down with other people who've been influential to me as well and share some of my stories that I've had and experiences that I've had to be able to add more color to their experience to say like, look, you're not alone when you go through some of these things. Even people who have, quote unquote made it or have been successful have had challenging times before.
Right.
And it's been through certain experiences that people grow to be able to identify the kind of person that they're going to be
Yeah.
and who they will be in the future. I think there's a lot to be said there. And I get to sit down with some really dope people who've had a really great impact in my life to be able to, share their story
Yeah.
and share their journey as well. Because again, I think when young people hear that, like, oh, so the things I'm going through are challenging, but I'm not alone. Like other people are going through challenges too,
Right.
and they were able to kind of overcome. Okay, now I don't feel like, it's all on me or like I feel like I'm a fail. Like, okay, I can get through this because I remember I heard this other person say that they kind of grew up where I grew up and they had challenges too. And then it was at this moment when this kind of clicked over that happened, but they didn't have that moment until all these other things happened. So if I'm not pushing myself to change or to, to be vulnerable or to experience new things, then how can I, get to that that moment of adversity turned triumph?
Okay. Is this something you're thinking to do in an audio format, in a video format? Like how will this be accessible to the folks that are going to access it?
Yeah, so it'll be a podcast. Will be the really great juicy stuff is going to be video,
Okay.
podcast kind of format, and then also available via audio. And then some of the other stuff will be just audio. So I don't want to overdo it, but at the same time, I don't want it to be undersold either.
Sure.
And this isn't about me. I don't make any money doing this. I'm really crowdsourcing from people who are interested in making an impact, and be that individuals or organizations, doesn't really matter. But what I want to do is make sure that I'm putting young people, be it teens or young adults, in the best possible light
Mm.
so that people can see them and say like, these are people in Philadelphia who need assistance and need help.
Yeah.
What can I do? If I give a damn and I say I want to do something, let me listen to this podcast and figure out what it is that I can do. And I can put a face to the issue and to the topic and say, you know what? I heard James had questions about mental health. And I myself are a mental health professional, but James asked specifically about this thing here. This is something that a young person who's 20 years old expressed that said that they live in Philadelphia and they feel like this isn't being addressed. And now I have the capacity to do something about it. Now I can give James this $5, or I can say, I know what James needs. Let me see if I can help James. Like, and I think this platform has that capacity to be that thing. And again, I just want to be able to put it all together and put it out there to the world. And hopefully that does some good.
So, and I don't prefer this, but I think this kind of it fits here. So in, we'll say 5 years from now, what do you see? What's different? Does the world look any different? Do things feel different as a result of this offering that's being offered?
It's weird. I love that question, by the way. The thing that I find interesting, right, is that I've helped people and didn't know it until many, many, many years later. And so for me, it's not always about the end result, right? I'm not in it for like the finish line. I'm in it for the journey.
Okay.
I don't know. I have no answer in terms of what this looks like 5 years from now, other than here is a compilation of questions and an attempt to find those answers. We put those things together and I gave it to the world. If nothing happens from that, nothing happens from it. But I also feel as though like that it's there now. Wasn't there before. So if people want to know what's going on with teens in Philadelphia,
They could find out
at
because
least
now it
right now in this
exists.
little sliver, this little time period that this
Yeah.
exists, this little time capsule, this is it. This isn't an ulterior motive. This isn't like a third party with an agenda to say like, well, we really want to, give you coats. And so like, tell us what you need. Oh, we need food. Okay, well, that's cool. But here are these coats instead. No, no, no. This is like,
Right.
I don't know what it's like to be a teen in Philadelphia. Enlighten me. I don't know what it's like to be a young adult in Philadelphia. Enlighten me and tell me what it is that you need. And I can't guarantee you that I'm going to be able to like better your circumstance. What I can guarantee is that there are other people out there that can. And
Mm.
so if I can reach those individuals and connect with them, I'm not even asking for money. I'm just asking for their time and some information,
The
which
connection. It's almost like you're
people have.
like a support matchmaker.
I'm like an advocate.
That's what they call it. That's actually the word, an advocate.
Yeah.
Fair. Good point. And I won't take up too much more of your time. Is this something that so as an example, so kind of this sliver of time, this is what I found out. Is this something that you maybe refresh every 6 months, every year, every indefinite period of time to kind of keep, because to the point, tomorrow the teens may need something different than they
Mhm.
do today.
1,000%.
Right. So is part of what you want to do to keep this as an existing thing, or kind of to set this in motion to where this is a baton that is easily passed to kind of keep going? Does that make sense?
It does.
Yeah.
I don't know yet. I
Fair.
honestly,
Fair.
my mindset right now is to help and to be able to get this information out there. And then what happens kind of happens. I mean, I could see me doing this in other cities.
Okay.
I could see me doing this in Philadelphia for a while. It's turned into a whole talk show. But I think that turns into a me thing, and I don't want that.
Fair.
This is about and this is the only time I'm going to reference myself, is how I can help teens and young adults in Philly right now.
Okay.
And that's all I'm concerned with. That is my MO. That is my mission, my goal, my vibe, all that shit. I've been doing this for way too long, and I've seen young people not necessarily suffer, but like I've seen how the mark just gets missed, and it's like, damn it, had we hit it, like things would have been so much different. Like if this organization or if this department or if this company had just like done this one little thing different, man, this shit would have it would have made such a difference. But instead, for whatever reason, it didn't. And so opportunities get missed. And so I kind of want to just create the opportunity and the space where if it is missed moving forward, maybe maliciously you can say that it's intentionally missed. Because at this point, it's like you can't if you want to know what teens are saying, here it is. Like, and it's again, there's no bias, there's no jade. Like I'm gonna literally ask teens, tell me what it is you need.
I told you I wanted a sandwich and I got a coat. All right.
So and that's cool. Like, so you just wanted to give out coats.
Cool.
So now teens understand this is where I go to get coats.
Right.
Say less.
Yep.
That's where, hey, guys, these people give out coats.
You want coats? Oh, coats.
They give
over
out
there.
coats in November and they give out coats in July. So if you need a coat, look these people up. But yeah, so like that's what it turns into. I don't know. I don't have a long-term plan. I have a vision for making a significant impact that needs to be made. And I'm hoping that if nothing else, this builds some momentum and it creates a network of support for teens and young adults.
Okay.
it maybe highlights an issue and highlights a blind spot that we've had in terms of communicating with young people.
Uh,
And we can be more intentional about those conversations and then addressing what comes out of those conversations and not just brushing them aside.
right.
Just saying, no, this is legit. Like this is valuable. And
That's a
so
great
like,
point. Let's put some energy into doing something.
period, as they say, period.
All right. Anything you want to tell the people that you didn't get a chance to say? You've shared a lot, and I mean, I know that I have a lot clearer understanding of what the intention is, what you want to do, what this means to you, where this comes from. But is there anything else that you may have left out or you didn't get to kind of share that may be helpful to just kind of share with the people listening?
I mean, the only thing I'm gonna say is I'm trying to do these really high quality episodes, and unfortunately, it costs money to the tune of about 25K. Now, again, I'm not making any of this money. None of this money goes in my pockets. I'm working with another organization that really does high quality podcasting and is local to the Philadelphia area. And so, I went to them. They put together a nice little quote. And again, this we're talking about high quality stuff here. So, I want to be able to do this and do it right. And so, with that, there does come a cost. So my only ask is if you can give and if you want to be the person that gives $5, this would be that opportunity to give that $5. And really that's it. I can give out more information on our Instagram and on our TikTok and on LinkedIn and on Facebook. That's really it. Financial support towards that goal. That 25K gets us 8 high quality episodes. And that's in addition to the other content that I'm also going to put on the podcast as well. So it's not just 25K get you 8 episodes. 25K is going to get you these 8 high quality video episodes in addition to all the audio content that's going to be on there as well. News and, current event kind of topics and that kind of stuff. So I'm really excited about this entire project. I get to really pour myself into this and see what happens from it. Right now, I'm watering the soil, as they say.
All right. Thanks for your time.
Appreciate you, bro.